Venezuelan deception. Why the 2026 liberation is a mirage. Tonight, we are pulling back the curtain on a tragedy that was sold to the world as a triumph. You remember the images from early January, the graininess of the night vision goggles, the precision of Operation Absolute Resolve, the announcement that Nicolas Maduro, the man who oversaw the most spectacular economic suicide in modern history, was finally in chains. For years, the people of Venezuela, decent, hard-working families, clung to a single shimmering hope. They dreamed that if the regime just disappeared, the nightmare would end. They dreamed of a day when their currency wouldn't be used as literal wallpaper, when the 1,000,000% hyperinflation of 2018 would be a campfire story, and when their children wouldn't be among the 8 million refugees scattering across the globe. They sat in their darkened homes in Maracaibo and Caracas, whispering about the day the Americans would finally arrive. They imagined a Marshall Plan for the Caribbean, a flood of aid, the lights flickering back on, and the supermarket shelves groaning under the weight of affordable food. They saw the U.S. flag not as a symbol of empire, but as a beacon of a return to the middle class. They were told that liberation was coming. But look at Venezuela tonight, 3 months post-invasion. What do they actually have? The media tells you the U.S. embassy in Caracas is open and the diplomatic deep freeze is over. They show you Delcy Rodriguez, the new acting face of the same old power structure, signing massive privatization deals with oil conglomerates. They talk about sovereign wealth reconstruction funds like they're a gift to the people. But talk to a father in Anzoátegui. Ask him about his liberation. In those secret January meetings, while the streets were still echoing with the sound of the 150 aircraft used in the raid, the conversation wasn't about humanitarian aid or restoring the power grid. It was about reconstruction funds, a sanitized term for offshore accounts that redirect oil revenues away from the starving public and into the hands of the new political elite and their international creditors. We have obtained internal meeting logs from January 5th, just 48 hours after U.S. Delta Force teams breached Maduro's compound, that prove this wasn't an intervention for the people. It was a liquidation sale for the world's largest oil reserves. Before the tanks rolled in, the average Venezuelan was struggling against 475% inflation. Today, under the new stabilized oversight, the projection for 2026 is 682%. That is the highest on the planet. His minimum wage? It didn't go up with the freedom he was promised. It's sitting at 30 cents. 30 cents a month. In a country sitting on the world's largest oil reserves, the people are being told to survive on less than the cost of a pack of gum. The Gini index, the measure of the gap between the ultra-rich and the starving, is at a staggering 44.7. The elites in Caracas are getting rich off the new private oil licenses, while 70% of the population is still trapped in the same extreme poverty they were in under Maduro. The faces at the top changed. The soldiers on the street have different patches, but the electricity still flickers out. The water is still brown, and the shelves are still empty. Was this ever about the Venezuelan people, or was Operation Absolute Resolve just a corporate restructuring disguised as a crusade for democracy? Because from where the average Venezuelan is standing tonight, the liberators didn't bring a new dawn. They just brought a new landlord for the same old ruins. The liquidation logs and the death of the believer. While the world watched the televised footage of the raid on Miraflores Palace, a much quieter, much deadlier operation was unfolding in the high-rise boardrooms of Caracas. We have obtained the leaked internal logs from January 5th, not even 48 hours after the capture. These documents don't mention food aid. They don't mention the chronic medicine shortages. Instead, they detail a series of emergency asset reallocation meetings. The names on these logs are a who's who of global finance. We see high-level representatives from major Western investment banks sitting across from the newly installed interim officials. They weren't there to restore the power grid. They were there to collateralize the nation's future. The documents outline the creation of the sovereign wealth reconstruction funds, which on paper look like a recovery plan. In reality, these funds are designed to bypass the national budget entirely, funneling oil revenue directly to international creditors to pay down debts that the Venezuelan people never asked for. The great asset carve-up, the dream of the liberated Venezuelan, was to see the oil wealth finally used to fix their crumbling schools and hospitals. They hoped the end of Maduro meant the end of the resource curse, but the new laws passed in late January tell a different story. These laws allow for 100% private control of oil production, a total reversal of decades of national policy. While the acting president talks about social protection, the internal logs show that the first $1 billion in oil sales since the invasion didn't go to the barrios. It was diverted into these reconstruction funds to satisfy strategic partners. For the common man, the absolute resolve of the West was simply a more efficient way to extract the black gold while leaving the citizens in the dirt. The return of the barter economy, because the new administration has focused entirely on securing oil contracts and satisfying foreign banks. The currency, the bolivar, has been left to rot. In 2018, the world gasped as inflation hit 1,000,000% and people traded bags of cash for a single egg. The hope was that 2026 would be the year of hard currency and stability. Instead, the managed collapse has pushed the people back into the dark ages. With a 2026 inflation forecast of 682%, the Bolivar is once again a ghost. In the rural states of Zulia and Bolivar, the economy has completely regressed into a primitive barter system. We are seeing reports of teachers trading their wedding rings for a sack of flour. We are seeing nurses trading their shifts for a few liters of clean water. This is the liberation the media won't show you. The restoration has created a two-tier society more brutal than anything seen under the previous regime. On one side, you have the dollarized elite in Caracas, the ones connected to the new private oil ventures, who shop in guarded boutiques. On the other, you have the 70% of the population earning 30 cents a month, forced to weigh gold flakes on hand scales just to survive another day. The global blueprint. And here is the most terrifying part. What is happening in Venezuela right now isn't an accident, it's a blueprint. It's the Venezuelan model of 2026, induce a crisis, decapitate the leadership, install an unelected interim body, and then liquidate the national assets while the population is too busy bartering for their next meal to protest. If they can do this to a nation sitting on the world's largest oil reserves, what makes you think your savings account is safe? What makes you think your national sovereignty matters to the people in those January 5th logs? Venezuela was the laboratory. The experiment was to see if you could replace a sovereign nation with a corporate-managed territory. And looking at the 30-cent-a-month reality on the ground today, the experiment was a massive success for everyone except the Venezuelans.